Listen closely, because what I'm about to share with you could change everything you thought you knew about success, about abundance, about the magnificent power sleeping inside your own mind. Two forgotten masters, writing over a century ago, discovered secrets that the wealthy elite whispered about in private. Circles, truths so powerful they could transform a pauper into a prince, a dreamer into a titan of industry. Frederic Van Rensselaer Dey and James Allen didn't just write books, they decoded the very formula of human transformation, and what they found will shake you to your core. Imagine for a moment, standing at the edge of absolute failure, your pockets empty, your dreams shattered. Everyone around you convinced you're finished, and then, in one electrifying instant, discovering a power so immense, so undeniable, that poverty becomes impossible, that success becomes inevitable, that your entire reality bends to your will like clay in the hands of a master sculptor. This isn't fantasy, this isn't wishful thinking, this is the documented, proven, undeniable truth that these two luminaries revealed to the world. And today, right now, you're going to understand exactly how to harness it. The magic story begins with a man in complete desperation, a businessman named Henderson, who has reached the absolute bottom of existence. Everything he touched turned to dust, every venture collapsed, every hope evaporated like morning mist under a merciless sun. He sits in his shabby apartment, contemplating the cruel irony of his life, wondering why some men rise to unimaginable heights while others, equally intelligent, equally hard-working, sink into perpetual failure. This question haunts him, tortures him, keeps him awake through endless nights of anguish and confusion. Then, as if the universe itself responds to his desperate plea, he receives a mysterious manuscript, a document that promises to reveal the greatest secret ever discovered about wealth, success, and power. At first, Henderson dismisses it as the ramblings of another charlatan, another false prophet selling empty promises to desperate souls. But something compels him to read. Something whispers that within these pages lies the answer he's been seeking his entire tormented life. The manuscript tells of an ancient secret, passed down through generations of the truly successful, a secret so simple yet so profound that most people dismiss it entirely, never realizing they're holding the master key to unlimited abundance. This secret centers on a singular transformative concept, the conscious. Recognition and awakening of what the manuscript calls your higher self, your divine inner power, the God force residing within every human being, waiting, yearning, desperate to express itself through your life. You see, Henderson learns something that changes everything, that transforms his understanding of reality itself. He discovers that every human being possesses two selves, two distinct consciousnesses operating simultaneously. The first is the smaller self, the ego, the personality that identifies with limitation, fear, doubt, and scarcity. This smaller self believes in obstacles, sees enemies everywhere, trembles before challenges, and accepts defeat as inevitable. It's the voice in your head that says, "You can't. It's impossible. You're not good enough. Who do you think you are?" But beneath this frightened, limited consciousness lies something magnificent, something infinite, something absolutely unstoppable. This is your higher self, your true nature, the divine consciousness that knows no limitation, recognizes no obstacle as permanent, sees every challenge as an opportunity for magnificent demonstration of power. This higher self isn't separate from you. It is you, the real you, the eternal you, the you that existed before your body was born and will exist long after your body returns to dust. The manuscript reveals that all failure, all poverty, all suffering comes from one source, and one source only: identification with the smaller self. When you believe you are merely this limited personality, this fragile ego, this collection of fears and doubts, you cut yourself off from the infinite power that is your birthright. You become like a prince who has forgotten his royal heritage, wandering the streets as a beggar, all the while possessing unlimited wealth he simply cannot remember how to access. But here's where the magic happens. Here's where everything changes. Here's where the impossible becomes inevitable. The moment you consciously recognize your higher self, the instant you deliberately identify with this infinite power rather than your limited personality, everything in your external world must change to reflect this internal transformation. This isn't metaphor, this isn't philosophy, this is the iron law of manifestation that governs every atom of the universe. Henderson learns that he must perform a specific practice, a sacred ritual of consciousness that awakens this dormant power. Every morning, before the world intrudes with its demands and distractions, he must sit quietly and declare to himself with absolute conviction, with unwavering certainty, I am not this limited personality, I am not these fears and doubts, I am not this struggling ego. I am the higher self, I am infinite power, I am divine intelligence expressing itself through this human form. I am success itself, abundance itself, power itself, wisdom itself. This isn't mere positive thinking, this isn't empty affirmation. This is conscious identification with your true nature. It's the difference between wishing you were wealthy and recognizing that wealth is your inherent state, between hoping for success and understanding that you are success itself, temporarily wearing the costume of limitation. As Henderson begins this practice, something remarkable occurs. At first, nothing seems to change externally. His circumstances remain dire. His bank account still empty, his creditors still threatening. But internally, a profound shift begins to take root. He notices that challenges which previously filled him with panic now seem manageable, almost trivial. Obstacles that once appeared insurmountable now reveal obvious solutions. People who previously dismissed him now listen with respect, even seeking his counsel. The manuscript explains why this happens, and understanding this mechanism is crucial to your own transformation. When you identify with your higher self, when you recognize your divine nature, you literally vibrate at a different frequency. You emit a different energy signature that attracts different circumstances, different opportunities, different people into your orbit. Success-minded individuals sense this shift unconsciously and gravitate toward you. Opportunities that were always present but invisible to your limited awareness suddenly become obvious, even inevitable. Henderson discovers that this higher self operates according to different laws than the struggling ego. The ego sees a world of scarcity where you must fight for every scrap, compete against everyone, and protect your meager resources from those who would steal them. The higher self knows that the universe contains infinite abundance, that there is enough for everyone, that your success doesn't require anyone else's failure, that giving and receiving are the same action viewed from different angles. As days turn into weeks, Henderson's external reality begins to mirror his internal transformation. A business deal that seemed certain to fail suddenly succeeds beyond his wildest expectations. A debt he thought would ruin him gets unexpectedly forgiven. A connection he made years ago, seemingly by chance, suddenly presents an opportunity worth thousands. Money begins flowing toward him from unexpected sources, as if the universe itself conspires to validate his new consciousness. But the manuscript warns of a crucial danger, a trap that ensnares most seekers before they reach complete transformation. This is the tendency to let success lull you back into identification with the smaller self, to forget your divine nature once circumstances improve, to slip back into old patterns of thinking once immediate crisis passes. The higher self must be continuously recognized, deliberately acknowledged, consciously embodied, not just during desperate times but especially during prosperous ones. Henderson learns that true mastery requires making this conscious identification so habitual, so automatic, so deeply ingrained that it becomes your default state of consciousness. You don't just practice recognizing your higher self during morning meditation, you maintain this recognition throughout every activity, every interaction, every challenge of daily life. You speak from your higher self, make decisions from your higher self, respond to obstacles from your higher self, conduct business from your higher self. The transformation becomes complete when there's no longer any effort required, when identifying with infinite power feels more natural than identifying with limitation, when you literally cannot imagine seeing yourself as anything less than the divine consciousness expressing through human form. At this point, success isn't something you achieve, it's something you are. Abundance isn't something you attract, it's something you emanate. Power isn't something you acquire, it's something you recognize has always been yours. Now, as revolutionary as Day's magic story proves to be, James Allen's mastery of destiny takes these principles even deeper, revealing the precise mechanisms through which consciousness creates reality, and providing the exact roadmap for complete life transformation. Allen, writing with the precision of a surgeon and the passion of a prophet, understood that most people remain trapped in limitation, not because they lack opportunity, but because they lack understanding of how their own minds create their circumstances. Allen begins with a profound and challenging declaration that makes many people uncomfortable, but remains absolutely true. You are where you are because of what you are. Your circumstances, whether prosperous or impoverished, successful or struggling, joyful or miserable, are the perfect reflection of your predominant mental state, your habitual thoughts, your characteristic emotional frequency. This isn't judgment, this isn't blame, this is liberation, because it means that changing your circumstances requires only changing your consciousness. Most people operate from what Allen calls the victim consciousness, believing that external forces control their destiny, that circumstances happen to them rather than through them, that they are powerless leaves blown about by the winds of fate. This consciousness produces a life of perpetual struggle, where you react to circumstances rather than creating them, where you feel helpless before challenges, where success seems dependent on luck or other people's decisions. But Allen reveals that this perception is complete illusion, a mass hypnosis that keeps humanity trapped in collective mediocrity. The truth, the powerful, liberating, magnificent truth, is that you are not the victim of circumstances, you are the creator of circumstances. Every condition in your external life originated in your internal consciousness. Every situation you face reflects beliefs you hold. Every person you encounter mirrors something within your own psyche. This might seem harsh at first, particularly when facing difficult circumstances that appear completely beyond your control. How can poverty be your creation when you desperately want wealth? How can illness reflect your consciousness when you desire perfect health? How can failure be your doing when you work so hard for success? Allen anticipated these questions and provides answers that illuminate the hidden mechanisms of manifestation. The key lies in understanding the difference between conscious desires and unconscious beliefs. Your conscious mind might desperately want wealth, success, health, and happiness. But if your unconscious mind, your deep-seated beliefs, your core identity remain aligned with limitation, struggle, and unworthiness, then your unconscious programming will always override your conscious wishes. It's like pressing the accelerator and brakes simultaneously. You might want to move forward, but your deeper programming keeps you stuck. Alan explains that most people's unconscious minds are filled with limiting beliefs, absorbed from parents, society, past failures, and cultural conditioning. These beliefs operate silently, invisibly, constantly creating circumstances that match their frequency. You might consciously affirm abundance while unconsciously believing that money is scarce, that you don't deserve wealth, that rich people are somehow corrupt, that struggle is virtuous, that you're not smart enough or connected enough or talented enough to succeed. These unconscious beliefs act like invisible magnets, constantly attracting circumstances that validate them, constantly creating evidence that confirms them, constantly ensuring that your external reality matches your internal programming. This is why willpower alone rarely produces lasting change, why positive thinking without deeper transformation provides only temporary results, why most people's lives remain remarkably consistent year after year despite their desperate desire for change. But here's the magnificent truth that Alan discovered, the truth that changes everything, the truth that hands you the master key to destiny. These unconscious beliefs can be changed. They are not permanent features of your psyche, not immutable aspects of your character, not unchangeable facts about your nature. They are simply mental habits, patterns of thought repeated so often they became automatic programs, installed in your consciousness that can be uninstalled and replaced with new, empowering programs. The process Alan describes for this transformation involves several distinct stages, each building upon the previous, each essential to complete mastery. The first stage is what he calls the awakening of self-awareness, the practice of observing your own thoughts, emotions, and reactions without judgment, simply noticing the patterns that habitually run through your consciousness. Most people never develop this capacity, never step back from their thoughts enough to see them objectively, never realize they are not their thoughts, but the awareness observing those thoughts. This self-awareness practice reveals something shocking. The vast majority of thoughts running through your mind are not original, not consciously chosen, not deliberately planted. They are repetitive loops, automatic reactions, inherited beliefs, cultural programming, fear-based protections, all operating without your conscious permission or awareness. You might discover that the same worries cycle through your mind every day, that the same limiting beliefs about yourself get repeated thousands of times, that your internal dialogue consists largely of criticism, doubt, and fearful projections. Becoming aware of these patterns is the essential first step, because you cannot change what you cannot see, cannot transform what remains unconscious, cannot heal what you refuse to acknowledge. This stage requires courage because it means honestly confronting the ways your own thinking creates your circumstances, admitting that your habitual mental state might be the primary obstacle to your success, accepting responsibility for changing patterns that feel comfortable precisely because they're familiar. The second stage Alan describes involves what he calls the discipline of thought, the practice of deliberately choosing which thoughts to entertain and which to reject, refusing to allow your mind to run on autopilot, taking conscious control of your mental content. This doesn't mean suppressing uncomfortable thoughts or pretending negative emotions don't exist. It means developing the strength to observe a limiting thought, arise and consciously choose not to give it power, to notice a fear-based reaction, emerge and deliberately redirect your attention toward your desired outcome. This discipline requires persistent practice because your old thought patterns possess tremendous momentum. They've been running for years or decades. They feel like truth rather than choice. They arise automatically whenever specific triggers appear. But Alan promises that with consistent practice, this discipline becomes easier. The empowering thoughts become more automatic. the limiting. Thoughts lose their grip, and eventually, your habitual mental state shifts permanently toward confidence, abundance, and power. The third stage involves what Alan calls the mastery of circumstance, the recognition that once your consciousness changes, your circumstances must inevitably follow. This stage requires faith during the interim period between internal transformation and external manifestation, the patience to maintain your new consciousness even when old circumstances persist, the wisdom to understand that external reality always lags behind internal change, like an echo following the original sound. Many seekers fail at this crucial stage because they expect instant results. They transform their consciousness on Monday and expect their bank account to explode by Wednesday. They develop confidence and become frustrated when opportunities don't immediately materialize. They change their thinking, but give up before the external world has time to reorganize around their new frequency. Alan emphasizes that the lag time between internal change and external manifestation varies depending on how deeply entrenched your old patterns were, how consistently you maintain your new consciousness, how completely you've eradicated the old limiting beliefs. But he promises something absolutely guaranteed. If you maintain your transformed consciousness, if you refuse to slip back into old patterns, if you persist regardless of temporary appearances, your external circumstances must change. This isn't optimism, isn't hope, isn't wishful thinking. This is law, as reliable as gravity, as certain as mathematics, as inevitable as dawn following night. Changed consciousness creates changed circumstances with the same certainty that planting apple seeds produces apple trees rather than orange trees. Alan provides specific guidance for different life areas where this principle applies with particular force. In the realm of financial prosperity, he explains that wealth consciousness must precede wealth manifestation. You cannot attract abundance while identifying with scarcity, cannot generate prosperity while believing in limitation, cannot manifest wealth while harboring guilt about money or resentment toward the wealthy. The path to financial freedom requires developing absolute conviction that abundance is your natural state, that money flows easily and naturally, that you deserve prosperity, that wealth enables you to serve more people more powerfully. This wealth consciousness isn't about greed or materialism. It's about recognizing that money is simply energy, a tool for exchanging value, a medium through which you can express generosity and create impact. When you release limiting beliefs about money being scarce, dirty, or corrupting, when you develop healthy relationship with prosperity, when you see yourself as a channel through which abundance flows to benefit many, then wealth begins flowing toward you with remarkable consistency. In the realm of relationships, Alan reveals that the quality of your connections directly reflects your internal state. If you experience conflict, drama, or betrayal repeatedly, this indicates internal discord, self-betrayal, or unhealed wounds that attract similar patterns externally. If you feel lonely, despite being surrounded by people, this reflects lack of connection with yourself, inability to be present, or walls you've built for self-protection. If you struggle to find your ideal partner, this reveals unclear vision of what you actually want, conflicting beliefs about relationships, or unconscious conviction that you're unworthy of great love. The transformation begins by developing the qualities you seek in others within yourself first. Want more love in your life? Become more loving toward yourself and others. Desire deeper connection? Practice authentic presence and vulnerability. Seek loyalty and honesty. Embody these qualities consistently regardless of others' behavior. The universe operates as a mirror, reflecting back to you the energy you emit, surrounding you with people who match your frequency, bringing you relationships that validate your core beliefs about what you deserve and what's possible. In the realm of health and vitality, Alan explains that your body responds directly to your predominant mental and emotional state. Chronic stress, suppressed emotions, negative thinking, and persistent worry literally create disease within your physical form. Conversely, thoughts of health, emotions of joy and peace, mental states of confidence and calm produce vitality, strength, and remarkable healing capacity. This doesn't mean you should blame yourself for illness or ignore medical treatment. It means recognizing that consciousness plays a far larger role in physical well-being than most people realize. The path to radiant health involves cultivating thoughts of vitality, visualizing your body functioning perfectly, speaking to yourself with encouragement rather than criticism, releasing grudges and resentments that poison your system, choosing peace over drama, and maintaining emotional equilibrium regardless of external chaos. When you consistently maintain this consciousness of health, your body responds with increased energy, improved function, enhanced immunity, and remarkable resilience. Alan addresses one of the most common obstacles to transformation, the tendency to blame external circumstances for internal states. People say, "I'll be happy when I get that promotion. I'll feel peaceful. Once this problem resolves, I'll be confident after I achieve success." But Alan reveals this thinking backwards. You must become happy to attract the promotion, must cultivate peace to dissolve the problem, must embody confidence to generate success. External circumstances don't create internal states. Internal states create external circumstances. This principle proves challenging because it requires taking responsibility for your emotions, your energy, your mental state, regardless of what's happening around you. It means choosing peace when chaos swirls, maintaining confidence during setbacks, expressing gratitude when circumstances seem difficult, embodying the qualities you wish to experience before those circumstances manifest. This isn't denial of reality, it's deliberate creation of new reality through conscious choice of internal state. Alan provides a powerful practice he calls the daily renewal, a morning ritual that programs your consciousness for success before the day's demands intrude. Upon waking, before checking messages or engaging with the world, you spend time in deliberate contemplation of your highest vision for yourself and your life. You visualize yourself embodying the qualities you're developing, succeeding at your endeavors, experiencing the circumstances you're creating, feeling the emotions associated with your desired reality. This practice isn't mere fantasy or escapism, it's the deliberate programming of your unconscious mind, the intentional creation of the blueprint that your external reality will follow, the conscious planting of seeds that must eventually produce corresponding harvest. When performed with focus, emotion, and conviction, this daily renewal literally rewires your neural pathways, shifts your energetic frequency, and activates the law of attraction to begin drawing matching circumstances toward you. The practice continues throughout the day through what Alan calls vigilant awareness, the ongoing monitoring of your thoughts and emotions, the immediate correction of limiting patterns when they arise, the consistent return to empowering beliefs whenever old programming attempts to reassert itself. This vigilance gradually becomes effortless as your new consciousness becomes habitual. Your empowering beliefs become automatic. Your highest vision becomes your default mental state. Alan emphasizes that this transformation affects not just your individual life but radiates outward to benefit everyone you encounter. As you embody mastery, you become a light that helps others find their own path, a living demonstration that transformation is possible, an inspiration that awakens dormant power in those around you. Your success gives others permission to succeed. Your confidence helps others develop courage. Your peace brings calm to troubled situations. Your abundance creates opportunities for many. This principle of radiation reveals a profound truth about human existence. We are not isolated beings competing for limited resources. We are interconnected expressions of one universal consciousness, each affecting all others through our individual state of being. When you rise, you lift others. When you transform, you make transformation easier for everyone. When you embody mastery, you strengthen the collective potential for all humanity to awaken. Both Dey and Allen understood something that modern success teaching often misses. Transformation isn't primarily about techniques, strategies, or tactics. It's about consciousness shift, identity evolution, fundamental change in who you believe yourself to be. All the goal setting, action planning, and skill development in the world produces limited results if you continue identifying with limitation, lack, and smallness. But when you recognize your divine nature, embody your higher self, and align with the infinite power that is your essence, right action flows naturally, appropriate strategies become obvious, necessary skills develop easily. The synthesis of these two teachings creates a complete system for life transformation. From Dey, you learn to consciously identify with your higher self, to recognize the infinite power residing within, to deliberately declare your divine nature regardless of current circumstances. From Allen, you learn the precise mechanisms through which consciousness creates reality, the specific practices for transforming limiting beliefs, the patient persistence required during the manifestation process. Together, they reveal that success isn't about working harder, it's about being different, thinking differently, identifying differently. It's about making the fundamental shift from seeing yourself as a limited personality, struggling in a hostile world, to recognizing yourself as infinite consciousness, expressing through human form, creating reality through your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs, possessing unlimited power to transform any circumstance. This recognition changes everything about how you approach life's challenges. Instead of feeling victimized by obstacles, you recognize them as opportunities to demonstrate your power. Instead of fearing failure, you see it as feedback guiding you toward effective strategies. Instead of resenting successful people, you recognize them as evidence that success is possible and learn from their example. Instead of believing you lack something necessary for success, you understand that everything required already exists within you, waiting only for recognition and activation. The practical application of these principles begins immediately, this very moment, regardless of your current circumstances. You don't need perfect conditions to start, don't need to resolve all problems first. Don't need permission from anyone, don't need special credentials or capabilities. You need only the willingness to try a different approach, the courage to question limiting beliefs, the persistence to maintain new consciousness even when old circumstances temporarily persist. Begin with the morning practice both teachers emphasized, those first moments after, waking when your mind remains receptive, not yet hardened by the day's concerns. Sit quietly, breathe deeply, and make the conscious declaration, I am not this limited personality, I am not these fears and doubts, I am infinite consciousness. Expressing through human form, I am the higher self, I am divine power, I am success itself, I am abundance itself, I am wisdom itself. Repeat this declaration with feeling, with conviction, with absolute certainty, until it resonates throughout your entire being. Throughout the day, practice vigilant awareness, monitoring your thoughts, catching limiting beliefs when they arise, immediately replacing them with empowering truth. When you notice yourself thinking, I can't afford that, immediately correct to, abundance flows easily to me. Money comes from expected and unexpected sources. When you catch yourself thinking, "This is too difficult," immediately shift to, "I possess infinite intelligence and find solutions easily." When fear arises, remind yourself, "I am protected by infinite power. I am guided by divine wisdom. All things work together for my good." This practice feels awkward initially because it contradicts years of conditioning, challenges, beliefs you've held since childhood, requires you to think in ways that feel unnatural at first. Your old programming will resist, will insist these affirmations are lies, will try to discourage you with evidence of current limitations. Persist anyway. Continue the practice regardless of resistance. Maintain the new consciousness, even when the old one seems more convincing. Something remarkable happens as you persist. The new thoughts begin feeling more natural, the empowering. Beliefs start seeming more true. The consciousness of power becomes your default state. This shift might occur gradually over weeks or suddenly in a moment of profound realization, but it will occur if you refuse to quit, if you maintain practice despite apparent lack of immediate results, if you trust the process even when logic questions it. As your consciousness shifts, your external reality must respond. Not might respond, not hopefully responds, but absolutely must respond, because consciousness and circumstance are not separate things, but two aspects of one unified reality. Your changed thoughts create changed emotions. Your changed emotions produce changed behaviors. Your changed behaviors generate changed results. Your changed results confirm your new beliefs, creating an upward spiral of continuous improvement. You'll notice opportunities appearing that you previously overlooked, connections forming with people who support your growth, resources becoming available exactly when needed, solutions emerging to problems that seemed unsolvable, doors opening that were previously locked. These aren't coincidences, aren't luck, aren't random chance. They are the natural, inevitable consequences of your transformed consciousness, the external manifestation of your internal shift. But the teachings warn against a subtle trap that ensnares many seekers. The tendency to become attached to specific outcomes, to demand that manifestation occur in particular ways, to reject the good that comes because it doesn't match your exact specifications. The universe possesses infinite intelligence and often delivers your desires in forms better than you imagined, through paths you never considered, in timing that serves your highest good, even if it frustrates your preferences. The practice requires combining clear intention with complete surrender, knowing what you want while releasing attachment to how it arrives, maintaining vision of desired outcomes while trusting the universe to orchestrate details, holding firm to faith in ultimate success while remaining flexible about the journey. This balance between intention and surrender, between focused desire and relaxed allowing, between determined action and patient trust, characterizes the consciousness of mastery. As you continue this practice, you'll discover something profound about the nature of transformation. It's not a destination you reach, but a continuous evolution you undergo. Not an achievement you complete, but an ongoing becoming you experience. There is no finish line where you declare yourself fully transformed and stop growing. There are only ever-expanding levels of consciousness, ever-deepening recognitions of your divine nature, ever greater expressions of the infinite power within you. This understanding prevents the disappointment that occurs when seekers expect transformation to be a one-time event after which all challenges disappear and life becomes perpetually easy. The truth is that as you evolve, you encounter new challenges appropriate to your expanded consciousness. You face more sophisticated obstacles that call forth greater capacities. You experience tests that prove and strengthen your developed powers. But you face these challenges from a completely different state of being, with access to resources you previously lacked, with confidence born of past victories, with wisdom gained through continuous growth. The journey becomes its own reward when you recognize that life's purpose isn't reaching some imaginary state of permanent ease, but continuously expanding your capacity to express divine consciousness through human form, progressively mastering the art of living, increasingly embodying your highest potential, eternally exploring the infinite possibilities available to awakened awareness. From this perspective, challenges aren't obstacles preventing your happiness, but opportunities enabling your growth. Difficulties aren't punishments for inadequacy, but invitations to demonstrate greater mastery. Problems aren't evidence that transformation isn't working, but proof that you're ready for the next level. Both Dey and Alan emphasized that this teaching isn't theoretical philosophy meant for intellectual contemplation, but practical science designed for immediate application. They didn't write to entertain readers with interesting ideas, but to provide precise instructions for complete life transformation, to share the exact formula through which anyone, regardless of current circumstances, can rise to any height of success, prosperity, and fulfillment. The power of these teachings lies not in their complexity, but in their simplicity. Not in obscure techniques, but in fundamental truth. Not in what they add to your understanding, but in what they remove, the false beliefs, limiting identities, and unconscious programs that have kept you trapped in smallness. They remind you of what you already are but have forgotten. They awaken power that has always been yours but lay dormant. They activate potential that existed from your birth, but required conscious recognition to express. You are not a limited being hoping that infinite power might help you. You are infinite power, temporarily experiencing limitation, not a struggling personality seeking to connect with higher self. You are higher self, momentarily identifying with personality, not a human trying to become divine. You are divine consciousness expressing through human form. This recognition changes everything, transforms every circumstance, makes the impossible inevitable, turns limitation into infinite potential. The moment you truly grasp this truth, not just intellectually understand it, but deeply realize it, viscerally feel it, completely embody it, your entire reality shifts. What seemed difficult becomes easy. What appeared impossible reveals itself as inevitable. What felt like struggle transforms into flow. What looked like obstacles prove to be stepping stones. You don't become a different person. You become more yourself. You don. To acquire new power, you recognize power you've always possessed. You don't create new reality. You awaken to reality that was always true but remained hidden by false identification with limitation. This is the magic story that Dey revealed. This is the mastery of destiny that Alan mapped. This is the secret that transforms everything. This is the truth that sets you free. Not free from challenges, responsibilities, or growth opportunities, but free from the belief that you are helpless, victim of circumstances, free from identification with limitation and lack, free from the prison of small thinking and fearful living, free to express the magnificent consciousness that is your true nature, free to create circumstances matching your highest vision, free to live as the divine being you actually are. The time for transformation is now, not someday when conditions improve, not later, after you've prepared more thoroughly, not in the future when you feel more ready. Now, in this present moment, regardless of current circumstances, despite apparent obstacles, without waiting for permission or perfect conditions. The power is already within you, the wisdom already available, the divine consciousness already present, requiring only your recognition, your acceptance, your embodiment. You stand at a threshold. On one side lies the familiar landscape of limitation, struggle, and small living, the comfortable discomfort of known difficulties and accepted restrictions. On the other side lies unexplored territory of unlimited potential, magnificent expression, and boundless possibility, the uncomfortable excitement of releasing all limitations and claiming your divine heritage. The choice is yours, has always been yours, will always be yours. The universe awaits your decision, ready to support whichever identity you choose to embody, ready to confirm whatever beliefs you decide to maintain, ready to create whatever reality you commit to experiencing. Choose the higher self, choose infinite consciousness, choose divine power expressing through your unique form. Make this choice not once but continuously, not just in morning practice, but throughout every moment, not only during meditation but especially during challenges, not merely when feeling inspired but particularly when facing difficulty. Let this choice become so habitual that you forget your choosing, so automatic that it becomes your nature, so natural that you cannot imagine identifying with anything less. As you do, you'll discover what countless masters throughout history have proven, that success is not scarce commodity available only to lucky few, but natural consequence of aligned consciousness available to anyone willing to claim it. That abundance is not distant goal requiring years of struggle but present reality requiring only recognition. That power is not external force you must somehow capture, but internal essence you need only acknowledge. That fulfillment is not future destination you might someday reach, but current experience you can immediately access. The magic story is your story. The mastery of destiny is your mastery. The infinite power is your power. The divine consciousness is your consciousness. The unlimited potential is your potential. Everything you've ever desired, every achievement you've imagined, every height of success you've dreamed, already exists in potential form, waiting only for the consciousness that can call it forth, the recognition that can activate it, the faith that can manifest it. You are that consciousness, you possess that recognition, you have that faith, perhaps buried beneath layers of conditioning, perhaps dormant from years of disuse, perhaps hidden by false beliefs and limiting identities, but present nonetheless, perfect nonetheless, powerful nonetheless, waiting only for your decision to claim it, your commitment to embody it, your courage to express it. This is not the end of your journey, but the beginning, not the conclusion of learning, but commencement of mastery, not the final words. You'll hear about transformation, but the first words of your own lived experience of unlimited power. The teachings have been shared, the principles revealed, the path illuminated. Now comes your part, the practice, the persistence, the patient faith, the courageous action, the unwavering commitment to maintaining transformed consciousness regardless of temporary circumstances. You will face doubts, these are certain, not because transformation isn't working, but because old programming resists change, not because the teaching is false, but because your conditioning fights against truth. When doubts arise, remember this moment, remember these principles, remember your divine nature, remember that you are infinite consciousness, temporarily experiencing limitation. Remember that circumstances must change to match transformed awareness. You will encounter challenges. These are inevitable, not as punishment or proof of failure, but as opportunities to demonstrate your developing mastery, not as evidence that you're inadequate, but as invitations to express greater power. Not as obstacles preventing success, but as stepping stones enabling it. When challenges appear, recognize them for what they are: training ground for consciousness evolution, proving ground for developed capacities, sacred opportunities to embody truth you've been learning. You will experience setbacks. These are part of every master's journey, not as signs you should quit, but as tests of your commitment, not as indications. You're on wrong path, but as confirmations you're on right one, because the path of transformation always includes these initiations. When setbacks occur, refuse to interpret them as failure. Decline to use them as excuses for quitting. Choose instead to see them as temporary appearances contradicting the permanent truth of your divine power, as final resistance of old patterns before complete breakthrough. Most importantly, you will discover something that no words can fully convey, something you must experience to understand, something that transforms mere intellectual knowledge into lived wisdom. You will know, beyond all doubt, beyond all question, beyond all uncertainty, that you are far more than you ever imagined, capable of far greater achievement than you previously believed possible, possessed of power so magnificent that your current dreams seem small once you access it. This knowing doesn't come from reading words or studying teachings, but from persistent practice, not from understanding concepts, but from applying principles, not from believing theory, but from proving truth through your own direct experience. When this knowing arrives, and it will if you persist, everything changes, not just in your external circumstances, but in your fundamental relationship with reality itself, not just in what you achieve, but in who you know yourself to be, not just in your results, but in your consciousness. The magnitude of what's possible for you exceeds anything you currently imagine. The heights you can reach dwarf your present aspirations. The impact you can create surpasses your current vision. The life you can live makes your present circumstances look like the smallest beginning of unimaginable expansion. This isn't hyperbole, isn't exaggeration, isn't motivational rhetoric designed to excite without substance. This is simple truth about human potential when infinite consciousness awakens to its own nature. You stand at this threshold now. You hold these teachings now. You possess this power now. You are this consciousness now. The question is not whether you can transform. The question is whether you will, not whether the principles work. The question is whether you'll apply them, not whether transformation is possible. The question is whether you'll persist through the process. Your life until this moment has been preparation for what comes next. Every experience has contributed to your readiness. Every challenge has strengthened necessary capacities. Every lesson has built required wisdom. Everything has conspired to bring you to this point where you can finally claim your divine heritage, embody your higher self, express your infinite nature, create circumstances matching your transformed consciousness. The magic story is unfolding now. The mastery of destiny is beginning now. The awakening is happening now. Not in theory, not in possibility, not in potential, but in actuality, in reality, in lived experience. You are the protagonist of this story, the master of this destiny, the consciousness awakening to its infinite nature. Everything you seek is already seeking you. Every dream you hold is simultaneously holding space for you. Every vision you nurture is actively calling you forward into its manifestation. The power that created universes, that orchestrates the dance of galaxies, that guides planets in their orbits and causes seeds to burst into magnificent forests, this same power flows through you, animates your body, thinks through your mind, loves through your heart. You are not separate from this power. You are not disconnected from this intelligence. You are not isolated from this creative force. You are its expression, its manifestation, its individualized focus point, its unique channel through which infinite potential becomes specific reality. Understanding this changes how you approach every single aspect of your existence. When you wake each morning, you're not a limited person facing another day of struggle. You're infinite. Consciousness choosing to express through this particular form for another day of creative adventure. When you encounter other people, you're not meeting separate beings who might help or hinder you, you're recognizing other expressions of the same universal consciousness, wearing different costumes, playing different roles, reflecting different aspects of the one infinite being. When opportunities appear, you're not lucky, you're aligned, not fortunate, you're resonant, not randomly blessed, you're deliberately attracting circumstances that match your frequency. When challenges arise, you're not being punished, you're being refined, not facing obstacles, you're encountering opportunities. Not experiencing setbacks, you're receiving setup for comebacks that will demonstrate your evolved capacity. This perspective transforms everything because it removes the fundamental sense of separation that creates all fear, all limitation, all struggle. When you believe you're a small, isolated self in a vast, indifferent universe, fighting for survival in a world of scarcity, competing against billions of others for limited resources, then life becomes an exhausting battle where vigilance cannot relax, where trust feels dangerous, where opening your heart risks devastation, where authentic expression invites criticism. But when you recognize yourself as infinite consciousness temporarily, focused in human form, connected to everyone and everything through the underlying field of universal awareness, supported by the same intelligence that orchestrates all of nature, guided by wisdom far beyond your individual mind's capacity, then life becomes exhilarating. Adventure where synchronicity becomes normal, where perfect timing feels natural, where needed resources appear exactly when required, where the right people show up at precisely the right moments. Both Dey and Alan witnessed this transformation in their own lives and in countless others who applied these principles. They saw people rise from poverty to prosperity, from sickness to vitality, from depression to joy, from confusion to clarity, from powerlessness to mastery, not through luck or special privilege, but through deliberate application of consciousness principles, through persistent practice of mental discipline, through unwavering commitment to identifying with their higher self rather than their limited personality. These weren't exceptional people with unusual gifts, they were ordinary individuals who made extraordinary commitment to transformation, common people who applied uncommon principles. With remarkable consistency, regular human beings who decided to recognize their divine nature and refuse to accept identification with limitation regardless of circumstances. If they could do it, you can do it. If the principles worked for them, they'll work for you. If consciousness created their reality, it creates yours with equal power and precision. The practice becomes a way of life, not something you do during designated practice time, but something you are during every moment. You learn to catch yourself in limiting thoughts and immediately shift to empowering truth. You notice when you're identifying with the struggling personality and consciously reconnect with your higher self. You recognize when you're operating from fear consciousness and deliberately choose to embody love consciousness instead. This ongoing practice creates momentum that builds upon itself. Each successful shift makes the next one easier. Each time you choose empowering thought over limiting belief strengthens neural pathways that support transformation. Each instance of identifying with higher self rather than ego personality makes that identification more natural and automatic. What begins as difficult, effortful practice eventually becomes your default state. What starts as conscious choice ultimately becomes unconscious habit. What initially feels unnatural progressively becomes your authentic expression. The transformation isn't always linear or smooth. There will be days when you feel completely aligned, powerfully connected, absolutely certain of your divine nature and unlimited capacity. There will also be days when old programming reasserts itself, when doubts seem convincing, when circumstances appear to contradict everything you're learning, when maintaining faith feels difficult and practicing discipline seems pointless. Both experiences are normal, both are part of the journey, both serve your evolution. The key is refusing to let difficult days derail your commitment, declining to interpret temporary regression as permanent failure, choosing to see challenges to your new consciousness as opportunities to strengthen it through practice rather than evidence it doesn't work. Masters aren't people who never face difficulties, they're people who face difficulties from consciousness of power rather than victimhood, who respond to challenges with confidence rather than fear, who maintain vision of desired outcomes even when current circumstances contradict them. You develop this mastery not through perfection but through persistence, not by never falling but by always rising, not by avoiding mistakes but by learning from them, not by having unwavering faith but by returning to faith whenever doubt intrudes. Each time you choose the higher self after identifying with ego, each time you shift from fear to love, each time you replace limiting thought with empowering truth, you strengthen the consciousness that creates success, prosperity, joy, and fulfillment. The universe responds to this commitment with remarkable generosity, supporting your transformation in ways both obvious and subtle, providing what you need when you need it, orchestrating circumstances that serve your growth, connecting you with teachers who appear at perfect moments, opening doors that lead to opportunities you couldn't have planned or predicted. This isn't special treatment reserved for spiritual seekers. This is how reality operates for everyone who aligns their consciousness with infinite power, who identifies with divine nature, who chooses to see themselves and their world through eyes of possibility rather than limitation. As you continue practicing these principles, you'll notice patterns in how manifestation occurs. You'll recognize the signs that indicate you're aligned with desired outcomes. You'll develop intuition about which actions to take and which to avoid. You'll sense when timing is right for bold moves and when patience serves better. You'll feel the difference between ego-driven desires and soul authentic intentions. You'll distinguish between goals that reflect your true nature and those imposed by external expectations. This developing wisdom guides you with increasing accuracy, helping you navigate complex decisions with clarity, enabling you to read situations with remarkable insight, allowing you to sense other people's true intentions beneath their words, empowering you to make choices that serve your highest good, even when logic suggests otherwise. This isn't mystical woo-woo or irrational intuition. This is your higher self communicating through feelings, sensations, and subtle knowing, guiding you toward people, places, and opportunities that match your evolving consciousness. Learning to trust this inner guidance while also maintaining practical engagement with physical reality represents another aspect of mastery that develops over time. You don't abandon reason, strategy, planning, and action in favor of passive waiting for universe to deliver everything. You combine inspired action with patient allowing, strategic planning with intuitive guidance, practical effort with spiritual faith, individual initiative with universal support. This integration of spiritual truth and practical effectiveness characterizes genuine mastery as opposed to either spiritual bypassing that uses metaphysical concepts to avoid practical responsibility or materialistic reductionism that denies consciousness its rightful role in creating reality. True mastery honors both dimensions, recognizing that consciousness creates circumstances, while also understanding that manifestation requires appropriate action. That internal transformation must precede external change while also appreciating that external action accelerates internal evolution. The teachings of both Dey and Allen include this integration. They don't Suggest you merely affirm abundance while ignoring bills. Don't recommend. You simply visualize success while avoiding necessary work. Don't imply. You can transform through thought alone without corresponding action. They teach that transformed consciousness naturally produces right action. That aligned awareness automatically generates appropriate behavior, that when you identify with your higher self, you spontaneously do what serves your growth and success. This spontaneous right action feels different from forced effort, driven by fear or inadequacy. When ego personality tries to create success, action feels effortful, stressful, anxiety-producing, exhausting, like swimming against powerful current that constantly threatens to sweep you backward. When higher self expresses through action, effort feels natural, energizing, even joyful, like sailing with wind at your back, being carried by current that supports your movement, flowing with forces that amplify rather than resist your intentions. Learning to distinguish between these two types of action becomes crucial skill for maintaining alignment with your divine nature. Ego-driven action often involves pushing, forcing, struggling, trying to make things happen through sheer willpower, operating from fear that if you don't force results, they won't occur. Higher self-action involves following inspiration, moving when energy supports movement, resting when rest serves better, trusting that right action at right time produces better results than constant anxious effort. This doesn't mean becoming passive or lazy, doesn't suggest you should wait for motivation before. Taking necessary action doesn't imply you never do difficult things or push through resistance. It means developing capacity to sense whether resistance indicates wrong action that should be abandoned or natural friction that accompanies growth and should be overcome. Some resistance signals misalignment and deserves attention. Other resistance signals growth edge and invites courage. Distinguishing between these requires developing relationship with your inner wisdom, learning its language, trusting its guidance, following its direction even when logic questions it. This relationship deepens through practice, through paying attention to outcomes. When you follow intuition versus when you ignore it, through noticing how you feel in your body when you're aligned versus misaligned, through observing which decisions produce peace and which generate anxiety. Over time, this internal guidance system becomes remarkably reliable, more trustworthy than external advice, more accurate than logical analysis, more effective than careful planning. This doesn't mean you ignore wisdom from others, dismiss rational thinking, or abandon strategic preparation. It means you filter everything through your inner knowing, checking whether external input resonates with your truth, testing whether logical conclusions align with intuitive sense, evaluating whether plans feel inspired or merely sensible. As you develop this capacity, you'll discover that your higher self already knows exactly what you need to do to manifest your desires, already understands the perfect path forward, already sees the opportunities others miss, already recognizes the connections that will prove valuable, already comprehends timing better than your conscious mind can calculate. Your job isn't figuring everything out through mental effort. Your job is maintaining connection with this inner wisdom, staying aligned with this guidance, following this direction with trust and courage. This represents perhaps the most challenging aspect of transformation for people, accustomed to relying primarily on intellectual analysis and logical planning. The mind rebels against trusting what it cannot explain, resists following guidance it cannot verify, fears making decisions based on feelings rather than facts, worries that intuition will lead you astray while logic keeps you safe. But experience proves otherwise. You'll discover that intuition aligned with higher self proves far more reliable than intellect operating from ego consciousness. The mind serves wonderful purpose, analyzing information, solving problems, managing details, executing plans. But it makes terrible master, terrible decision maker about which direction serves your highest good. Terrible judge of what you truly need versus what you think you want. The mind knows what has worked before, what logic suggests should work. Now, what other people say you should do, but only your higher self knows what will actually work for your unique path, what serves your specific purpose, what aligns with your authentic nature. Learning to give the mind its rightful role as servant while elevating higher self to rightful position as master represents essential shift for complete transformation. This doesn't mean ignoring mind's input, dismissing its concerns, or refusing to engage analytical thinking. It means consulting mind for information and ideas while making final decisions from connection with inner wisdom, using intellect to evaluate options while choosing direction based on alignment with authentic self, engaging reason to refine strategies while following vision that originates from higher consciousness. As this shift occurs, decision-making becomes simultaneously easier and more powerful. Easier because you're no longer paralyzed by analysis trying to predict every outcome. More powerful because you're choosing from alignment with truth rather than fear, from connection with infinite intelligence rather than limited personality. You'll make decisions that appear risky by logical standards but prove brilliantly successful. You'll take actions that others question but that lead to remarkable opportunities. You'll follow paths that seem unconventional but that perfectly match your unique gifts and purpose. This willingness to trust your inner guidance, even when it contradicts external expectations, separates those who achieve extraordinary results from those who remain trapped in conventional mediocrity. Most people let fear of judgment, need for approval, desire for security, concern about others' opinions, keep them following prescribed paths that promise safety but deliver quiet desperation. Masters choose authentic expression over conventional approval, follow inner truth over external expectations, trust personal guidance over collective programming. This choice requires courage, particularly when you're surrounded by people invested in keeping you small, when family members question your decisions, when friends worry about your choices, when society suggests you're being foolish or unrealistic or irresponsible. The temptation to abandon your truth, conform to expectations, settle for safe mediocrity, becomes powerful when everyone around you insists you're wrong and they know better. Standing firm in your knowing, maintaining faith in your vision, continuing on your path despite others' concerns, tests your commitment to transformation. But those who pass this test, who refuse to let others' fears become their limitations, who maintain connection with higher self despite external pressure, discover something magnificent. The very people who criticized your unconventional choices eventually celebrate your success. The family members who worried about your risky decisions ultimately admire your courage. The friends who questioned your direction eventually seek your guidance for their own transformation. You become living proof that another way is possible, walking demonstration that transformation works, inspiring example that encourages others to claim their own power. This brings us to perhaps the most profound aspect of this teaching. Transformation is never just about you, never purely personal, never solely for your individual benefit. Yes, you experience improved circumstances, greater prosperity, enhanced well-being, deeper fulfillment, but the ripple effects extend far beyond your personal life. Every person who awakens to their divine nature makes awakening easier. For everyone else, every individual who embodies their higher self strengthens collective consciousness. Every soul who masters destiny through aligned awareness raises the frequency for all humanity. You're not transforming in isolation. You're participating in the greatest awakening in human history, contributing to the evolution of consciousness itself, playing your unique role in the shift from collective limitation to collective empowerment. Your success inspires others, your transformation gives them hope, your demonstration of what's possible opens their minds to their own potential. Your embodiment of higher self awakens remembrance in those around you. This understanding adds profound meaning to personal transformation work, elevating it from self-improvement project to sacred service, from individual achievement to collective contribution, from personal gain to evolutionary participation. You're not just making your life better, you're helping humanity evolve. Not just creating personal success, you're demonstrating what becomes possible when consciousness awakens, not just manifesting individual desires. You're proving the principles that can liberate all beings. With this recognition comes deep sense of purpose that transcends personal ambition, motivation, that survives temporary setbacks, commitment that persists through challenging periods. When transformation becomes about something larger than your individual comfort or success, when you recognize that your awakening serves everyone, when you understand that mastering your destiny helps others master theirs, then obstacles seem smaller, challenges feel more meaningful, difficulties appear as opportunities to demonstrate principles that others need to see proven. This is why both Dey and Allen emphasize that these teachings must not remain intellectual understanding but must become lived experience, must not stay as interesting philosophy but must manifest as practical demonstration, must not be kept as private knowledge but must be shared through example. The world doesn't need more theories about consciousness, more books about potential, more concepts about possibility. The world needs living proof, walking demonstrations, breathing examples of transformed human beings who show what's possible when infinite consciousness awakens to its own nature. You are becoming that proof, that demonstration, that example. Every time you choose higher self over ego, every instance when you shift from limitation to possibility, every moment when you embody love instead of fear, you strengthen not just your own consciousness but collective human consciousness. You brighten not just your own light but the light of the world. You elevate not just your own frequency but the frequency of all existence. This is the true magic story. Not that you personally succeed, but that your success proves principles available to everyone. Not that you individually prosper, but that your prosperity demonstrates laws anyone can apply. Not that you alone transform, but that your transformation shows the path all can walk. This is the genuine mastery of destiny, not control over external circumstances, but recognition of your role in creating reality. Not power over others, but power to inspire their own awakening. Not domination of conditions, but demonstration of consciousness principles. As you continue your journey, carrying these teachings from intellectual understanding into practical application, from studied theory into lived experience, from interesting concepts into demonstrated truth, remember that you walk a path countless others have traveled successfully. You're not experimenting with untested ideas, you're applying proven principles, not hoping something might work. You're implementing laws as reliable as gravity, not wishing for positive outcomes. You're creating inevitable results through aligned consciousness. The power is yours, has always been yours, will eternally be yours. The wisdom is within you, has always been within you, waits only for your recognition. The divine nature is your nature, has always been your nature, requires only your conscious identification. The infinite potential is your potential, has always been your potential, needs only your courageous expression. You are the magic story being written in real time. You are the destiny being mastered through conscious choice. You are the consciousness awakening to its infinite nature. You are the power creating circumstances through aligned awareness. You are the divine being expressing through human form. You are the transformation you've been seeking. You are the answer you've been searching for. You are the miracle you've been waiting to witness. Claim it now, embody it fully, express it courageously, demonstrate it powerfully, share it generously, live it completely. This is your moment, this is your time, this is your opportunity. This is your destiny, not to find, but to create, not to receive, but to claim, not to be given, but to recognize, has always been yours. The teachings are complete, the principles revealed, the path illuminated. Now begins the greatest adventure of your existence, the journey from knowing to being, from understanding to embodying, from learning to demonstrating, from student to master, from seeker to finder, from limited personality to infinite consciousness expressing magnificently through your unique human experience. Welcome home to your true nature. Welcome into your divine power. Welcome to the realization that changes everything. Welcome to the recognition that you are and have always been exactly what you've been seeking. You are the magic. You are the mastery. You are the infinite. Consciousness creating reality through every thought, feeling, belief, and action.